Billy Elliot, a simple, heartwarming tale of a working-class boy struggling for his identity, set against a backdrop of the miners' strikes of 1984. Coming from a typical mining family, Billy is expected to follow family traditions and eventually work in the coal mines of Newcastle.
Go, Billy!
But Billy has a gift. He can dance. Mrs. Wilkinson, the local dance teacher, inspires Billy to realise his talent. Dad, however, discovers Billy's secret lessons and bans him from dancing.
Bowie.
What's wrong with Billy?
What's wrong with Bowie?
Despite his frustration, Billy fights towards his goal of becoming a ballet dancer. Billy's brave determination finally wins the support of his father and an audition at the Royal Ballet School.
You got in?
He did it! He fucking did it!
It's a very strange thing looking back at it. I mean, certainly when we were making the film, none of us expected the film to be successful. I think that it was a low-budget British film. It was my first film.
I was both really surprised by the movie because it had a sort of a whole other life in it that I didn't quite expect.
It wasn't until I think its first showing at the Cannes Film Festival that we had any idea that anybody at all would actually respond to the movie in any way. And it was that first public showing in Cannes, which in fact Elton John came to, which is strangely now looking back on it, that was when the first conversations happened about perhaps turning it into a musical.
I had to be helped sobbing from my seat at the end of it. It affected me very much because I think of the relationship with Billy's father and Billy and my father and myself. It was a very moving story. It wasn't too sentimental. It was just on the money as far as I was concerned, and it had so many things about my life that seemed to be parallel with the story of the film. So, you know, that night was the night afterwards when we went to the party that I suggested even doing it as a musical because I just fell in love with the whole thing.
What the chance of doing the story on stage meant is we could focus a lot more on the community and find the links between the main characters and their background, which in a film, because of the way you cut about and the speed in which you have to tell a story, it can get lost.
I suspect you'll get much more of the miners' strike than perhaps you did in the film, and feel that it's not just a kid in conflict with his town, but actually that the battle that Billy is having to break free and to find a new life is mirrored much more acutely within the battle of the miners' strike.
You know, you always want to work with the best, and I think working with Stephen and working with Lee has, you know, really enhanced my enthusiasm for the whole project. Because you know, if you're writing a song and Stephen's going to hear it, you want it to be a good song, because otherwise, you know, Stephen's pretty critical. He doesn't give much away when you play something to Stephen. He'll think about it, and you're thinking, I wonder what he's thinking. Does he like it? Does he not like it?
Whip your head round and come back to that spot. Prepare. 1 and 2 and...
Someone said, well, who's going to do the lyrics? And I said, well, what about Lee? The screenplay it was fantastic. I said, well, he'll have to write the lyrics. And he said, well, I've never written any lyrics before, really. And I said, well, that doesn't matter. You can just have a go.
The great thing about this is to be able to sort of put my film career and my theatre career together into one place.
God, he came up with the most amazing lyrics for someone who's never written a lyric before for a song. They were astonishing, very funny, very sad, very poignant. And, you know, I had to laugh. I mean, I've written songs about warthogs, and now I'm writing songs about Merry Christmas, Maggie Thatcher.
You look like a right wanker to me, son.
The audition process for the stage show we always knew would have to be exhaustive and exhausting and continuous.
The children have to be better than Jamie was, in fact, in the film, because they're not able to cut and stop in between their sequences. You don't have the energy of the camera to propel the dances.
I don't think we ever imagined that any one child would appear having all the required skills.
The whole thing was looking for potential rather than a finished product.
The child needs charisma, natural acting charisma. The child also needs to have a huge amount of technique in terms of dance.
We had to find a child who could plausibly pass as a ballet dancer, who would get into the Royal Ballet School eventually. So we were looking for potential in ballet.
The child also needs to tap pretty much to a West End standard. The child needs to have pretty amazing gymnastic skills.
We would be looking at voices that maybe weren't necessarily trained, but that could hold a tune and that could actually capture an audience.
And the child needs to be just at the age before their voice breaks, come from the north, or indeed can do a plausible northern accent. Having said all that, you're actually looking for a child that is essentially going to become a star. And the story of the film is, in a sense, the story of the show. It's condensed into maybe 2.5 hours on stage. But at the end of those 2.5 hours, you need to really believe that you've just witnessed the growth and discovery of a West End star. And that's the X factor. That's the factor that's impossibly difficult to define.
We need 3 boys for various reasons. First and foremost, legally, the children are only allowed to perform a certain number of shows per week.
The show revolves entirely around a 12-year-old child, and to ask them to do that like 8 times a week would be absolutely impossible.
We ended up needing a team of 3, really, so that the boys don't get too exhausted.
So, yes, it's kind of trying to find 3 of everything.
And so we've seen literally thousands and thousands and thousands of kids.
What they're encouraged to do in the audition is anything and everything that they believe they look good at. So no child should leave the audition room thinking, I wish I'd done this or I should have done that. They're kind of told, this is your moment, anything goes, we're here to kind of, for you to show us what you're made of.
In the distance, can you sense it far away? Is it old Rudolph the reindeer? Is it Santa on his sleigh? It's heading up to Easington, it's coming down the Tyne. Oh, it's bloody Maggie Thatcher, Michael Hazeltine. So, Merry Christmas, Maggie Thatcher, may God's love be with you. We all sing together in one breath. Merry Christmas, Maggie Thatcher, we all celebrate today. 'Cause it's the one day closer to your death. They've come to raid your stockings and to steal your Christmas pud. But don't be too downhearted, it's all for your own good. The economic infrastructure must be swept away to make way for call centers and lower rates of pay. So, Merry Christmas, Maggie Thatcher, may God's love be with you. We all sing together in one breath. Merry Christmas, Maggie Thatcher, we all
The most amazing thing about the whole process of creating a musical has been the talent of the kids who we've met.
Genuinely, it's amazing to see how phenomenal some of the kids really are.
The fact that these kids were only 9, 10, 11, 12, whatever, and they were singing and dancing so well, I was astonished. I actually really was astonished.
Boys who sing and dance and can act.
It's been dazzling, really, to go through the audition process.
There have been lots of interesting things that have happened in the audition room, lots of funny moments, lots of characters that have suddenly grabbed our attention, and that's been brilliant and very funny and very heartwarming.
The idea that we were suddenly going to get 3 children who magically could do everything that we wanted was unrealistic.
In a sense, what we decided to do was try audition children for a training program and then cast out of that training program.
Which are sort of acrobatic, contemporary dance, street dance, bit of ballet, bit of tap, you know, it's a great big mixture.
And then our task was to make sure that that training process was rich, valid and rewarding in its own right, so that if the children then did not get cast in the show, they felt they were being given something precious and important to their development that they wouldn't normally have gotten anyway.
Eventually, when it came to sort of 6 months on, we had a handful of boys that were in intensive training.
The handful of kids who have kind of emerged as the most talented are quite incredible, I think.
Finally, we had 9 boys that we had to choose between for our first 3 Billies.
Just one last question. Can I ask you, Billy, what does it feel like when you're dancing?
When I'm dancing, it's like different. It's like you forget about everything, and you're just dancing, and you don't know what's going on.
I can't really explain it. I haven't got the words. It's a feeling that you can't control. I suppose it's like forgetting, losing who you are, and at the same time, something makes you whole. It's like that there's a music playing in your ear, and I'm listening, and I'm listening, and then I disappear, and then I feel a change, like a fire deep inside, something bursting me wide open, impossible to hide, and suddenly I'm flying, flying like a bird, like electricity, electricity, sparks inside of me, I'm free, I'm free.
My band and myself, I mean, we were watching the film when we did the press launch at the Royal Academy of Music, and we were so astonished by the level of genuine talent from these young kids. I mean, to the point of being nearly moved to tears. I mean, some of the kids who are not going to make it were just astonishing.
When we let go of the children from the Leeds audition, I think it was probably the worst time of the whole process.
You get involved in the kids' lives and the parents' lives and in the commitment and passion that that family have brought to bear on the child to get to a point where they could come to this audition, and then the hopes and fears during that audition process. So it does inevitably become very emotional.
We had to say goodbye to a group of them, and that was really very difficult. It took us by surprise, I think, how hard we found that.
And some of the kids have been auditioning maybe for between 7 and 9 months, so they've been through, really been through it.
All of those children had worked incredibly hard. Their parents had brought them, back and forth to Leeds weekend after weekend, and in the end, there is nothing you can say to make a child feel better when you're basically telling them that they haven't got the part.
However many auditions you and your family have had to come to, I'm afraid it's not going to work out. It's crippling. It's very upsetting for them, and it's very upsetting for everybody that's really wanted the kids to come through. Because you have to invest in every child in the hope and expectation they will come through, because you're actually spending a huge amount of resources and time and effort and indeed money on trying to get this kid to a point where you can cast him. So all the intention is to get kids that you can cast. So inevitably, you're pulling for them, you're pushing for them, you're hoping for them, you're wishing for them. And then when it doesn't happen, it's upsetting.
When the stars look down, they see the justice and the right. And the stars look down and see the struggle beneath the sun, where we'll stand as one beneath the sun.
The first three Billies were cast from a handful of children who had been on our training programme in Leeds.
And the kids themselves had often brought the whole of their families, you know, like not just their mums and dads, but all their brothers and sisters, their cousins. Everybody was rooting for the kids. Of course you're all rooting for the kids.
Post!
We put them into quite a difficult environment in that there were a lot of people watching them, and it's very interesting to see those children who are able to cope with that degree of, well, it's just, if they can hold their nerve, basically.
That's it, that.
Whether you believe that this child in the end will be fascinating to, you know, 1,300 people a night, and that they will invest their hopes and aspirations, and I don't just mean the children in the audience, but I think that the show will only work if the adult members of the audience invest in the child their own hopes and aspirations, not just for their kids, but for themselves retrospectively. And if the child can do that and can hold that audience, that's the assessment you have to make. Plus the other assessments, it's, are their voices going to break? Are they going to grow too quickly? What are they going to look like in 6 months' time? It's a whole series of factors which led us to the three boys that we finally cast. James, Liam and George.
What made these three stand out was something very different for each of them.
They're completely different.
They come from very different backgrounds, they've got very different dance teachers, and they're different ages, and they're different souls.
Liam, what he really latches onto is ballet.
He is an extraordinary ballet dancer, he has an extraordinary technique, and it is entirely, almost unique within the country. George and James have, obviously, is a very strong, as it were, street sense, a very strong physical sense, a very strong contemporary sense of themselves as dancers.
Seeing the journey of the children is always sort of fascinating. Although in some ways, I just try and concentrate on what they're doing at this moment in time, and give them the best support I possibly can, as opposed to thinking about what the future might hold for them.
This is very unusual. There's no other show quite like it with children on stage. Of course, you've had your Annies and your Olivers and Mary Poppins now, but these children are essentially supporting characters. The idea that there is one child that carries the title is a huge challenge.
The level of talent that we saw on the screen that day was really fantastic and really moving, very, very moving. And if we can get that transferred onto the stage for the musical, I mean, it's going to be a home run.
Write it all out like a bird in the sky, whiz, write it all out.